Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to waver on. I want to discuss, Mr. Wheeler, my concerns about the pace of cleanup of the over 520 uranium mine sites on the Navajo Nation reservation and the available EPA resources to resolve this crisis. This crisis was created by the federal government. This crisis the Navajo Nation had nothing to do with this process. You'll see a map on the screen identifying the sites, and most of them are nearby waterways or washes. While these mines are no longer operating, the lingering high levels of radiation, as admitted to by the EPA, are still causing a devastating effect to the health of Navajo people in my district. Remediation of these sites to reduce toxic exposures and ensure access to safe drinking water is moving too slowly. In fact, the monitoring systems aren't even in place right now. That's a USGS issue. In part because too few resources, such as staff and funding, are being devoted to completing these difficult work. I cannot see how proposals for deep cuts in funding and staffing can maintain progress, let alone increase its pace. The Navajo people already have waited decades for help in cleaning up this dangerous pollution, and they deserve a resolution. Administrator Wheeler, how does the EPA justify its 15% proposed cut around $115 million to the Superfund program for hazardous site cleanups for fiscal year 2020?
Congressman, we are trying to balance a number of competing interests within the EPA budget to try to reduce the overall federal expenditures. But one thing we are doing on the Superfund program is going after the responsible parties at a higher level. We had more recoveries last year from PRPs than previous years, which will hopefully free up more Superfund dollars to address other sites such as the Navajo Nation.
In this case, I believe that waiting for that time is costing people's lives and children's quality of life and their potential for life and death issues. But I also know that there is Superfund money there and you haven't been using it appropriately. After congressional pressure years ago, it seemed like progress was being made by the EPA in the creation of 5-year plans for uranium mine cleanups, which EPA released in 2008 and 2014. Did the EPA meet the goals it set for itself in this latest 5-year plan, which recently ended in 2018, and was enough budgeted to fulfill these goals?
If you don't mind, sir, I'd like to respond for the record on that question.
Okay. Further, the EPA Inspector General's office reported in August of last year that EPA had not finished developing the prioritization methodology for the 54 sites included in the settlements as of June 2018. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit for the record the Inspector General's report on this issue, report number 18P0233. Also in this report, EPA Regions 6 and 9 noted that they intend to follow through with their site cleanup contaminants and stay on schedule, but that the task completion dates are subject to available resources, staffing, and that both offices were operating with too few employees. In fact, both 5-year plans, there was no money requested from the EPA in addition to your regular budget, and frankly, the 10-year plan that's coming up does not request it either. Frankly, I'm disheartened that the funds currently available for mine cleanup, so few sites have been cleaned to date, even where funds are available to do the work, as with the settlement fund for the Tornex mines. It seems there are still too few resources at EPA to move this work forward, and many other projects that have been discussed here today. I do appreciate the EPA's process for site evaluation and tribal consultation, but the sense of urgency towards this crisis appears to be lacking in my view. In fact, I think it's disrespectful to the people that are impacted by this, and the responsibility of federal government is being made by this administration or prior. Mr. Chairman, with this information presented, I believe we, as a committee, ought to request the EPA come in for a thorough follow-up briefing on this matter. Mr. Wheeler, will you commit to an agency briefing before this committee on the status of the uranium mine cleanups?
Yes, I would.
I realize this is a complex and difficult task, but we should be able to make much better progress than we have been. Almost 80 years is way too long to have the Navajo Nation, the water resources of the Navajo Nation, and the Colorado River potentially impacted because of our negligence. And, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.